Welcome back to the Undrift for a quick tutorial. See, I really like to drift, but the reality is I struggle. We all do. So, here's a stock drift car. Stock is relative, obviously, it's a drift car. But I haven't done anything to it yet. I'm just going to drive it. And I'm going to keep this brief because it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect no matter what I do, but regardless. Okay, we're coming up to the first actual real turn here. Use the handbrake to initiate and can kind of drift. It's not a big deal. It is a drift car. It's made for this. Pull another one. We'll do another turn or two just for fun. And each time I come into a corner, I'm pulling the handbrake to initiate the drift. That's all good and well. That's kind of what we do, but nine times out of 10, I'd much rather do a clutch kick to initiate a drift rather than reaching for the handbrake. I've got to hit the clutch anyway, realistically, to pull the handbrake and get that to work right. So rather than do that step, clutch kick seems to work better. As you can tell, it still works fairly well doing a e-brake. But my hand's off the wheel for a second there and I can lose control. So what do you do to fix that? Well, I've got some ideas. So here's what I do. Let's tune this car a little bit. We're going to come over to suspensions first. And the roll bar and our roll bar front and rear is just fine. We might want to kick that down just a touch. We don't need that much roll bar in the rear. We're going to come to the left front wheel rate. And we're going to drop that to about 90. We don't need all that stiffness in the front. We want this car to kind of float through turns. And of course in the rear, we have way too much wheel rate. We're going to drop that down to about 40. So you want the rear end nice and loose. And we have that. Okay, over to generic. There's not a whole lot here, but the brake bias, I like having a little more front brake. Over to the dampers, or I mean the drivetrain, we're going to leave the diff power at 100%. We're going to leave the diff coast down at about 50. The lower the better on that one. The dampers we're not going to mess with. Alignment, we're going to mess with. Okay, I want as much negative camber in the front as I can possibly get with these. Now it's going to give me about 8. And that's a good number. Okay, with the toe, we're going to go for about negative 20, which we can actually get pretty close to here, or dead on. With this, again, we're going to adjust the camber first, not the toe. So we're going to get as close to a 0 camber on the rear tires as possible. And that's about going to do it. Any more than that, you're going to end up with positive camber, and that's not going to be good either. And you want to make sure you set both of these the same. Unless you're in NASCAR, you're going to be making turns in different directions. Okay, and you may notice the toe on this actually set up to be pretty close to where we need it, but let's just fine-tune it just a touch. Now we're a little closer to where we want. We want a positive 20 on the rear and negative 20 on the front. The electronics, we're going to turn the turbo all the way up. But why not do that? Don't waste the power. The fuel, don't care about that. Okay, for the tire compound, there's nothing I can do with that. But with the rear tire pressure Somebody set that at 27, which is lower than the front, which is going to give you more grip. I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but when we're drifting, that's the last thing we want at the rear end. And now with the gearing. Well, with a 70 mile an hour second gear top speed, that's pretty much perfect. We'll go with that. So let's see what the difference is. Of course, in the pits, I'm not going to be able to get very fast anyway. So we get up here, slowly, slowly, slowly get up here, bouncing off a rev limiter set by somebody that doesn't want the people in the pits killed for some reason. There we go. And no handbrake. Initiated with a clutch kick. Okay, we're going to do that again here. You notice I've done multiple clutch kicks in that same turn. I'll use the handbrake anyway, because my RPMs are a little high, but another clutch kick. We'll drop down a little bit here. And another clutch kick. And keep in mind, you can also use the clutch to regain control in a drift, which you can't really do with the handbrake. So if I can initiate the drifts with a clutch kick rather than the e-brake, and I can go back to the clutch to regain control, it's a much better choice. Well, sometimes I'm going to reach for that e-brake either way. Hit this turn. Nice clutch kick. Another clutch kick. And if I'm at the right RPM range, some of these turns, I can just throttle on and it'll go into a little bit of a slide. No clutch kick, no e-brake. Because I've got the rear tire pressure insanely high. So they're going to break loose pretty easy. And that's what I want with this. A nice clutch kick. And I'm still going to the barrier because I'm not great at this. But a little setup goes a long way. But the reality is, even a really good setup isn't going to make up for not being able to drive very well. You're still going to hit fences, you're still going to hit walls, and you're still going to spin out. But the reality is, setup still makes a huge difference. And that'll just about do it for that. And here we are with a replay of that same lap. You can see just how bad or good that setup actually went. But the reality is, it did make a difference. Pulling drifts earlier. Can hold a drift a little bit longer sometimes. And even if when I lose it, I can clutch kick again and grab back into that drift without slowing down from the e-brake. And this is not a super high horsepower car. I believe it was 337 horsepower. Obviously, with a much higher horsepower car, rear grip isn't going to make as much of a difference. But I can't hold on to those super high horsepower cars. 1200 horsepower just throws me all over the place. Maybe if I get a little better at this at some point, those will be fun, but I like the low horsepower cars, and I enjoy finding ways to make them drift a little better. While we're at it, look at that beautiful scenery around here. I know Misty Lock is not a drift track, and I come back to it a couple times and just enjoy driving it because it's got some really awesome scenery around it. Still running this with a Pure Candy filter. I've tried some of the photorealistic filters, but Pure Candy just seems to look the best for what I do. I'll stick with that. But I mean, you look around as the car's going by and some of these less action-packed sequences, and there's some pretty cool stuff going on back in the background. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that the things I've shown you might give you a little more interest in drifting and give you a little more fun doing it and a little more success doing it. Until next time, I'll see you on the Undrift.